Network. I am your host, Pearl Davis, and today we are going to be reacting to Charlie Kirk doing what he does best, debating and dunking on Gen Z liberals. But before we get into that, we do have some breaking news about the problem these days. It is a no wonder you are seeing testosterone levels of men declining 1% each year. The average testosterone level is half of what they were 50 years ago. This is one of the foundational physiological reasons why society is crumbling and in the state that it's in. These women are getting away with murder, and there is a simp epidemic. Testosterone levels are so low that something needs to be done about it. Chalk is on a mission to save mankind from extinction by boosting your vitality. When you boost your testosterone, you'll have more mental clarity, you'll know better, you're more capable of making decisions, taking risks. Having high testosterone will also affect your pheromones, so women will find you more attractive subconsciously. Get the Chalk Male Vitality Stack on chalk.com. That's CHOQ.com. Chalk provides the highest quality herbal supplements clinically studied to boost your testosterone. Their tongue cat is wild harvested from Malaysian rainforest and is studied in double-blind human trial to boost testosterone levels 87% in 21 days. You guys can use my name Pearl as your coupon code and you'll get 25% off site-wide on chalk.com. That's CHOQ.com. Coupon code PEARL. Boost your testosterone naturally and supercharge your masculinity. Do not be a simp. So as you guys can see, I want to say thank you to the sponsor of this episode. It's actually really good. I use it for my marathon training. I have a marathon next weekend. Pray for me. And you just put 2 scoops or 1 scoop. That was like half each. And then watch, you shake it, turns blue, and then take a sip, and you are energized for the day. Okay, guys. So a couple announcements before we get started. If you want to support my work, go to theaudacitynetwork.com. Thank you for tuning in at noon today. I have a flight to catch today, so I had to go in early. But I just saw this video, and I think I reacted to a small clip of it earlier this week, and I just wanted to analyze some of the debates that people are, I guess, covering or doing this election season. It's so interesting now that the election is a month away. You see politicians and debaters and media people interacting with Gen Z, because I think they're going to be very important for this election season. You can even see them reaching out to young women. As you guys know, young women or single women are the biggest swing voters, and they tend to decide elections. So it's going to be interesting to see what Gen Z's political opinions are like. Oh, man. Sorry, this is my fault. Okay. I can't hear it. Oh, it's me. Sorry.
Yep, I'm sorry. I'm really nervous. I'm really nervous.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Have a good one. Can I have a hat?
Nope.
Very advanced.
Thank you.
Charlie, you've stated that you're not into criminalizing the mother for an abortion. Why is that? Like, how can we make a law that has no consequences?
Well, there's 2 parts of this, right? The first of which is no person should advocate for retroactive enforcement of something that was once legal to then make illegal. We can agree with that, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I would agree. If tomorrow they made abortion illegal, we could not put people in jail that have already had them. You can't punish people for a law a new law that did not exist 10 years ago. So I would agree.
No matter what the law is, you cannot claw back. For example, if all of a sudden the government says you can't have a public assembly like this, and that is effective tomorrow, they can't go back today and put us all in prison, right? So that's number 1, retroactive. Number 2, my heart goes out to women that have abortions.
Right.
Because they're lied to and manipulated, and it's based.
So again, this is the same thing that we've talked about before. It's always the women didn't know. Plausible deniability lets us get away with, in this case, murder. It's always, they're always going to default to the woman does not know better, because he has more of a blue-pilled mindset. So when men are more blue-pilled, they tend to view women as innocent. They just don't know any better. And they always, always, always give women the benefit of the doubt. So these are the guys that have a tendency to marry women with a promiscuous past, because they always, always, always give women the benefit of the doubt.
On one very simple medical principle, the lack of informed consent. I do not believe women, largely when they get abortions, know what they're doing. They're not given
So this is not true. I have shown women abortion videos and they do not care. Occasionally you may get one that I would argue pretends to care after the fact. But I look at actions, I don't look at words. And I think one of men's greatest weaknesses is they always fall for women crying. Myron has a saying where he says that a woman's only true tears are the ones that she cries in private. I agree with this. I don't really buy the women that come on these shows and say they really regret these abortions, because I believe if they were put in that position again, they would still do the same thing, because biologically, women do not want to pass on genes that they believe are subpar. This is evolution. This is how it's always been. I don't think it's right. I'm pro-life. If it was up to me, it would be illegal and the women would be thrown in jail, but it's not. And I don't see this issue going away anytime soon.
Sounds for their baby. They're not informed of the gruesome and graphic details surrounding their procedure. Instead, the justice system should be focused on the abortionists that are actually doing that procedure.
And who are the abortionists? It's the men. So whenever there is a choice where we can blame women or blame men, we have a tendency as a society to blame the men. Like if we say, I'll give you another example. When we say the marriage rates are declining, and we want to look at who is in charge of marriage. Whose choice is that? Why are marriage rates not declining? Now, the initial reaction is to blame the men. Well, men don't want to get married anymore. But if we look at the average age of first marriage is 31. Men hit their peak around 35, and sometimes if they stay in shape, it goes higher and higher. That indicates that it's actually the women that are delaying marriage, because when we have the most choice, we're not picking it. So even in that case, they still blame the men when the men are actually cashing out sooner than the women. In most cases, women are the gatekeepers of marriage because so many men are being excluded from the sexual marketplace. Okay, but that's just another example where we're blaming the men for something that women are doing. When 1 out of 3 women are getting an abortion, now I don't know, when 1 out of 3 women are getting an abortion, that's far more a woman's choice, right? And women say that it's a woman's choice. Men shouldn't have an opinion. They agree, right? But yet, when we get to the conservative commentators, they still find a way to blame it on the men. And personally, I think that's wrong. If I hire a hitman, just because he pulled the trigger, I still know what I'm doing when I hire the hitman. And if I don't, I can Google it. And I am still responsible and if anything, I would argue more responsible, because the hitman is just doing a job where that person is putting a hit on somebody. So, yeah.
Does that make sense?
I mean, I guess, but the person also committing the crime, like killing her baby, I feel like should also be held responsible.
And I like that. I like that women are starting to wake up. We don't need, and I don't know if he's doing this because he's trying to appeal to female voters. And he's in a tough position because his audience, he can never come out as pro-choice. His audience is way too conservative. That would go against his base. But he has to have been in politics long enough to know that the abortion issue will never change. There's no way that you can go and be in politics for 10 years. And I know maybe to the average person, this seems immoral, right? But what I would say is when you're in a position where you're negotiating with people, you have to think about what is realistic and what is unrealistic. And what I would say is that getting abortion banned, I could, if I wanted to, do a tirade about how wrong and immoral abortion is. And while I would agree that would be ineffective because Roe versus Wade is here to stay, if 1 out of 3 women are getting abortions and women are the biggest swing voters, your chance of that going away is 0. What a more effective policy to reduce abortion would be, I would argue, is getting rid of child support and letting men opt out of fatherhood the way that women are able to opt out of motherhood. Because if you increase the consequences for casual sex, then, and you actually hold women responsible for their decisions, you may see a decrease in the irresponsible behavior. But what conservatives, and this is why I always try to say conservatives do the same thing liberals do, because they keep handing women get out of jail free cards. And what's interesting is if you ask conservatives about homeless men, they never give them a get out of jail free card. They will do a whole tirade about how the men need to get a job. They'll do a whole tirade about how the men need to step up. If we hear that there aren't enough marriageable men, what do the conservatives say? The men just need to do better. Well, why is it always the men? And that's what I call it, the what about the men though syndrome, where if you say anything about women, if we say, hey, maybe if abortion's murder, we should hold the women that are committing a crime responsible. They say, no, 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 that's the doctor's fault. And so I can't really, when you treat us like children, and you can see this woman, she's kind of waking up, where she's thinking, no, I'm an adult. We can make our decisions. We know what we're doing. And once you wake up to this epidemic of simping, it's an epidemic, guys, where let's give us get out of jail free cards and then throw our hands up and we can't believe the way that we're acting. Well, of course, when you give women plausible deniability every chance you get, where if we get an abortion, we just didn't know. I don't know how we could not know when you see, like sometimes I wonder, do you guys go to these pro-choice marches where the women are arguing for abortions? They have the babies there. And you see the pro-life people showing them the videos. They don't care. And it is what it is, you know.
Like, how can we ban abortions and the mom just still be let go?
Is that a lot? Okay, it's like he does not compute. She's like, no, I think women are responsible for their decisions, just like men are responsible for their decisions. Does not compute. Does not compute.
Yeah, we're just not going to agree. I just don't. First of all, she's not doing the act. Many times she's being forced into that situation by someone paying for that abortion, such as someone that she might have had a relationship with, or even in terrible pimps also do it as well. But we're not going to agree because I think
Captain Save-A-Ho. Captain Save-A-Ho, the pimps. As we talked about, class, remember, I've interviewed tons of sex workers. They don't do it because they're forced into it. They don't do it for money. The average OnlyFans model makes about either $150 or $200 a month. So if we're going to ask the question based on the stats and say, are women doing sex work for money? The answer would be no, because we have up to, and this is disputed, but I've seen numbers 1 out of 10 to 1 out of 5 women under the age of 35 doing some sort of sex work. And at the end of it, you find out there's not even money. That would indicate that they do it, or we do it for something other than money. And this is the reality I'm trying to bring back to America, because I get very frustrated when I watch these debates because facts don't care about your feelings according to the right until the facts go against the women are wonderful and awesome and amazing syndrome at all times.
Our posture on abortion should be compassion for the women that have abortions and get abortions, and justice.
Can we imagine if we said, Charlie, could you see him saying this? Let's talk about a men's issue. So a men's issue is homelessness. Charlie, don't you think we should have compassion for the men that are on the streets that are homeless? No, the conservatives say get a job. And what they don't know is, so I interviewed a man named Terrence Pop, and he is out of Michigan, and he went homeless. He was an ex-military veteran, and he served in Iraq. I think he did 3 tours. He did combat tours, but he's like a badass. He did a lot of stuff in the military. And he actually became homeless because he was put on such high child support. And the issue with military men is because they're gone so much of the year, their custody is automatically given to the woman. And what he found was when he would go to these homeless shelters, he would say, according to him, right, take this or leave it, I want to say it was 7 to 8 out of 10 of the homeless men at those shelters had just given up on life because they were put on such absurd amounts of child support that they just couldn't keep up with it. And yet conservatives will still talk about the deadbeat dad issue. But when I did my interviews, what I found out is most deadbeat dads are deadbeat moms because they kicked the dad out of the home. They put him on absorbent amounts of child support. And in some cases, it's 70 to 80% of their income. And they never have compassion ever for those men. When you say, well, the woman went and divorced him, what's their answer? It's, well, why did she divorce? He must not have been a good enough Christian. Well, I mean, I interviewed one guy who he went to Latin Mass, Catholic Mass, and as far as I could tell, didn't do drugs, didn't commit crimes. And it was one of the most horrific divorce stories I'd ever heard. And this was a devout Catholic man. And I kept finding this. I found a pastor who had 8 children whose wife did the same thing. And I kept thinking, well, what, you want him to be more close to God than a pastor? Like, what more do you guys want? But there's never, ever, ever compassion for men's issues. It's always, whenever we do something wrong, it's always somehow the men's fault. And I'm to the point I'm getting sick of it. I don't like being pandered to. I don't like the simping. And I don't like treating us like children. We're adults. And as an adult, you are responsible for the decisions you make, good or bad. So the more we have conservatives just pandering and simping and just giving us a get out of jail free card, I find it offensive. I don't understand why more women aren't offended by this. If you're a woman and you haven't done these things, right? If you've never gotten an abortion, you know that the women that get abortions know what they're doing. You know that most of the time, every woman I know personally that's gotten an abortion was irresponsible. Every single one was dating the guy. Every single one had a family she could have gone back to that totally would have helped her. But the women did not deem that man's genes as worthy of passing on. And that is biological. That's biology. I'm not saying you have to be, what did they say, a slave to your biology, right? I'm not saying just because your biology says you should do it. But what I am saying is they know what they're doing. And you are no better than the liberals if you give women a get out of jail free card 24/7.
It's for the industry that lies to them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone shuffle around. Okay, hi, I'm Rachel. Already off the bat, I do not agree with a lot of politically what any of you have to say, but I'm a part of Bridge Pittsburgh, which is an organization that believes in having civil discussion without yelling at each other. So I actually have some friends from Turning Point back there, even though I am a registered Democrat. So what's up, Jesse?
That's cool. I like that,
My question is actually for you, Vivek. First off, thanks for coming. Second, as a person of color and as someone of Indian descent, does it offend you whenever there's comments made about Kamala and some racial insensitivities on that? Does that offend you in any way or hurt you, or does that drive you to still try to be representative of your party, even when those comments are made by your party?
Give me a specific comment.
Okay, well, for example, the recent thing that was, if Kamala got elected, the White House would smell like curry. Does that offend you in any way, or is that just like drive for you to?
For the record, Trump did not say that.
No, Donald Trump did not say that, but it was still implied as there's a presidential election needs to
So
happen.
I'm a pretty thick-skinned guy. I can tell the difference between somebody who has an earnest joke and the person who actually happens to say that. I happen to know doesn't have ill will towards Indian people. But if you're going to joke, my only rule is you better apply it 360 degrees, okay? You can't apply it selectively. Here's actually my view on this, is a lot of Indian Americans across the country actually have been somewhat disappointed for a long time about Kamala Harris's willingness to engage with and listen to a lot of the concerns even of the Indian American community. I'll tell you what one of them is relating to merit. Merit in getting into college, merit in getting into jobs without regard to your skin color or your discrimination. I think most people want that better life for their kids. And so I think most people think about that regardless of their skin color, but if you're thinking about actual concerns of the Indian American community, that's probably very high on the list, and Kamala Harris is failing to embody that. Now, for me, my own view is, let me level with you a little bit. I actually think we have seen an unusual level, like this is in the last year, okay? And it's strange. A small uptick in anti-black and anti-Hispanic racism in the country. And I would have never thought we were gonna see it. Here's why I think we've seen it. I think we've seen it as a reactionary response to the anti-racist movement for the last 10 years, because there's no better way to foster racial animus than to take something else away from someone based on their skin color. So when you say you don't get that federal aid, or you don't get that seat in college, or you don't get that job because of your skin color, you're gonna have a negative attitude towards the person who was favored because of their race.
Okay.
And this is what's going on in Springfield too, by the way, when I'm visiting tomorrow.
Lord.
No, in a certain sense, if you're gonna put 20,000 people who are not gonna be able to integrate into a community, into that community, I sympathize with people who are suffering as a consequence of that. That's necessarily gonna spawn a reactionary response.
He's such a politician. That was such a good answer. He is such a politician.
Agree with you on that when you said that earlier.
But then you can't blame the reactionary response and say they're racist.
Okay, we're gonna. I don't really care about that. Oh, this is the next one.
You put right there.
Yeah.
I heard this woman
Thank
like.
you.
I heard the next woman flashed him to try to get it taken off of YouTube. Don't get excited, guys. They blur it, so don't. Everything's PG, all right, but.
Do you feel proud of yourself for debating college kids who are unprepared to speak in front of an audience like yourself?
Okay, remember, why does she have this point of view? 50 years ago, college kids were getting married, having children, or at least that was their trajectory. But for some reason, I don't know why we view 18-year-olds as children. They're adults. And it goes back to the plausible deniability. I was young, so I didn't know what I was doing. No. You know what you're doing. You might not have the wisdom to make the right decision, but you always know what you're doing. And the women get you guys on this all the time. I don't know. I'm like, guys, they know what they're doing. She's 18.
Hold on. You're 30 years old. We can agree you're 30 years old, right? Do you think that's a little bit silly?
Are you a voter?
I am a voter. I'm a
so
registered voter.
I vote and you vote. So I'm talking to voters of this country that will determine the future of Western civilization. That's what I'm doing here today. Yeah? Wait, hold on. How is it any different than a professor talking to you?
Then a professor talking to you? Who are you?
Well, important enough for you to come up to a microphone.
Actually, when I first saw this ad, I thought it was like an improv comedy thing. It looked so ridiculous that I didn't even think it was real.
Well, no, you could see. Look how popular Trump is on your campus. How does that make you feel? That's not comedy. That is a 5-alarm fire for Kamala Harris, because she's probably going to lose Pennsylvania.
Look,
But no, I just want to be clear. Is there something wrong with talking to voters?
No, there's nothing wrong with talking.
Well, that's
to
what we're
voters.
doing here today. It's an open mic.
I think that you push a dangerous agenda.
Such as?
Your stance on abortion rights, for example.
Here we go. Okay, so.
What did I tell you guys? This election season, biology precedes all. Because for 50 years we've said it's a woman's right to choose. Why do we have that phrase? Our biological imperative comes first. It comes before everything. So if you look at female voters, they have a tendency to vote for this one issue. And the reason I say this is because I think as women, we should know the way that the media and companies have a tendency to manipulate us. A lot of us are very neurotic. And so what happens is you have companies that'll say, cancer's going to get you, or the Republicans are going to get you, or this, and this. Insert bad guy, insert abortion for election season. It could be the GMOs that are going to give you cancer. And then they're trying to sell you a solution, or in this case, they're trying to make you vote. And because we have such, as women, we're a bit neurotic, we have very high anxiety. What happens is they use this against us in order to further their cause or get us to the polls or whatever.
So let me ask a question. What is your name?
Jean.
Jean, and what is your understanding of the current Republican Party's stance on federal intervention in abortion?
Well, I know that they want to bring it back to the states, right?
So it sounds like you do know that the Republican Party's current stance on abortion is they're against a federal ban on abortion.
And a lot of conservatives hate this, okay? And I've seen, he's a friend of mine. I like him, but I've seen Bryson Gray say that that's wrong and you need to, that's completely wrong, right? It needs to be a federal ban. But again, when you speak to and interview people that have run large companies, it forces them to have to negotiate with people. And when you negotiate with people, again, you have to think about what is realistic and what is not realistic. The Republicans are negotiating with the female vote. Now, you could argue that, and I'm not going to make that argument, but you could argue that it shouldn't be this way, but it is this way. So this is the system that we have. We have to think if women are the biggest swing voters, they're 55% of the population, they have the most effect on elections, what can we negotiate with women with? So if women have a lot of high-paying tech jobs, okay, we can sell to them lower taxes so you guys have more money. What you're not going to sell to us, and I don't think this is right, I don't think it's correct, I wish it wasn't this way, but you are not going to take abortion away from them. It will not happen, not in my lifetime. So if we want, we can go to the clinics and protest, and I totally understand why we do that because it is disgusting and I think it's wrong, but it's still not effective. And we can see that by the increase in the number of abortions every year, even after Roe versus Wade was overturned. So that tells us through hell and high water, this is here to stay. So the Republican Party is saying, what can we negotiate with them on? If I wanted to be the most effective and appealing to female voters, it's tough because I know you may lose Christian conservatives if you ever go full pro-choice. So I think the leave it to the states is probably the smartest thing they can do. But it's tough because whenever you talk about how that's not effective, the way people tend to hear it is they hear it as you're pro-choice and you're just giving up. But again, I think we got to pick our battles and which ones we can actually win. And just from looking at the market and having spoken to a lot of people about their cultural and political opinions, that is not going anywhere.
Do you understand
we're talking
that?
about a presidential election as the important election that we're talking about here.
I understand that, yes.
Great. So, again, I think this open dialogue is great. I think it's great you're here challenging Charlie, and I think it's great that he's willing to travel campuses across this country to talk to the next generation. We need more conversation. Now, where's the disagreement, though, on content? Because you can criticize style or why you're talking to people or dunk on someone personally, but where do you actually disagree?
That was a great political answer. You see how he gave her I think this is great. I think this is great. And instead of going right at her and saying, why are you here? That's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say, ma'am, why are you here? What is your actual disagreement? Why are you just here to argue? But see, this is how men have to learn, because men go through life and they're direct with us. Did you see how Charlie was super direct with her? And she's getting all defensive, da-da-da-da-da. So then men, they look at the market and they say, how can I win in this? Because this is not effective. And then I think he's doing a compliment. It's called a compliment sandwich. So it's like you say a positive, and then you give the negative. Or a negative, and then a positive.
I agree with the way that you edit content and specifically frame it so that people look bad talking to you. The way that you edit your content.
We post unedited content.
Do you see? This is so funny. It's like the men, because Vivek's obviously learned this, right? So Charlie is direct. And this is how men start off. And Vivek is like when men learn to play politics and talk to us a little bit nicer.
Let me just ask you one thing though, because personal insults can fly in all directions. Where is an area where you have a disagreement with the conservative movement, with Donald Trump, with Charlie Kirk, perhaps with myself? I was a presidential candidate last year. I think we need to talk about that more in the open. And the more we do, the stronger our country is going to be. We got a long line of people, but I want to hear from you. One substantive area where you have an authentic disagreement.
You see, it's like, you could say, ma'am, why are you here? Or you could say, I'd love to hear where you have an authentic disagreement. He's so good at politics. He's one of the best politicians, I think, in my lifetime when it comes to communication. He was so good. That's why he did so well, so young, and gained such a following. You can tell he has really studied and learned, he's had some sort of media training. I don't know what, but.
And I'd be glad to address it. I'm sure Charlie would too.
Just in anything. Relating
to any political topic where you have a disagreement.
See that he could have dunked on her. He knows he could have dunked on her, but he's like, here, young woman, let me set you up. Let me be a little nicer.
Let's air it.
Okay. I disagree with some of the laws that are being pushed in Congress that are against the LGBTQ community and the trans community.
Okay, so let's talk about that. I'm going to give you my view, and then I want to hear yours.
Okay.
My view is that if you're a fully grown adult, 18 or above, you're free to live how you want, dress how you want, marry who you want if you want, if you're over the age of 18.
I agree.
But you are not free to indoctrinate children in schools who are not yet of the age of consent. You are not free, just as you're a 17-year-old or a 15-year-old can't get a tattoo on their own, I don't think that you should be able to go or until the age of 18. And so the lines that I draw here is that men are free to claim to be women and swim in swimming pools. You're not free to claim trophies in a women's sports competition.
So if it was Charlie, right, what Charlie would have done is he would have said, what law? Name the specific law. You said you have a disagreement. That's totally the route he would have went. But Vivek is playing chess, not checkers. He's going to get the same thing across, but he's going to do it the politician way. Do you guys see the difference? So he's saying, okay, I'm going to tell you, he's like talking to her like a kid almost. I'm going to tell you where I disagree. This is my point of view. What's your point of view?
You're not free to enter a women's locker room. You're not free to change a language, and you're not free to actually indoctrinate our children who are under the age of 5 in schools. Do we agree on the fact that adults should be able to live freely while still treating children differently? If so, we're on the same side of this issue.
Listen, I agree with the majority of what you said. However, I don't think that you're understanding the implications of the laws that are trying to be passed.
Look, we got a head start in the conversation. We got a long line behind you. But my only ask is, forget the personal attacks or the stylistic attacks. Focus on substance. The more we debate that, the stronger we're going to be as a country. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I don't think you're focusing on substance, though. That's the issue.
Hold on. Look, he intentionally tried to provoke substance out of you.
It's like this is so funny to me because it's before media training, after media training. Where Charlie's like, ma'am, he just gave you ma'am, he just gave you kid gloves. And Vivek, he's very polished anyways.
And you said, well, I'm worried about some laws Congress should pass. I have to ask, what laws are you talking about? Can you be specific?
See, now she's putting her boob out because she's trying to get it taken off of YouTube. Why do we, as women know that sexuality is their primary agency. That is the number one way you can get attention. Women know this. And so that's why you might wonder, why is she putting her boob out? Why do women have slut marches where they get naked? Why are there serious political marches where they're just getting naked? It's because that's the primary way that women know how to get attention. So that's what she's doing.
I'm sorry, I'm very nervous, but this is what you do. This is what you do. You take people and you put them under the spotlight, and you.
Well, hold on. I didn't ask you to come up here. You voluntarily came to the front of the line. You didn't have to do that.
You're purposely antagonizing people on campus, asking people to come up by spreading.
So the reason she's saying you're purposely antagonizing people. Men go through life realizing they have to change their language to appease women. And so she views it that way because if Charlie was in a different setting, let's say that he did not go down the political commentator route, he would have had to have changed his language. If he went into corporate America, he would have had to do it. If he went into being a police officer. I mean, unless it's an all-male space, so like oil rigs, like super, super hard jobs, men learn that if they want to get ahead in life, they're going to have to change their language. So when a guy is not doing that, she is going to view it as you're antagonizing because she doesn't understand that's how men talk. They're a bit more direct. And Charlie has never had to learn those skills. So as women, it's like when you interact with most men, they've had to learn those skills in order to get to where they want to get. But it's interesting because we don't have to learn how to talk to men in a way that they like. In fact, most people would say that most women sort of speak like men. But we're allowed to, the men just are not.
Your weird agenda.
How? What agenda is that? I'm confused, though.
So, Charlie, I'll say this.
And I want to respond to one person in the comments section about the abortion debate. You make progress against abortion by shaming women for their lack of discernment and responsibility. You also teach the Bible in public schools, whether they like it or not, accept or reject at 18. I, too, had this thought process. I thought the exact same thing. But after interviewing 1,000 women, I would argue that shame does very little to influencing women. I know what they say, but what I have found is even if men shame women for something or other women shame women for something, there's too many women that we coddle each other when we make bad decisions. So if we gain weight, look at the comment section of any woman that's gained a ton of weight. One of the first comments will be women saying that she looks beautiful. Whenever there's a woman on a podcast saying she slept with 1 million people, even when they get social shame, there's still 1 million women backing them up and saying, no, that's amazing. I don't see that as an effective strategy. I wish it was, but what I try to do is be as accurate as possible, and think of the best strategies that I can.
We'll end on this and we'll go to the next question. When I was 18, and I'm not going to blame you for this, I also took for granted a lot of the stuff that the media force-fed me, because that's what you know at the age of 18. You say there are some vague laws making their way through Congress that are hostile to trans community. I don't think those laws actually exist, but I don't blame you if that's what the cable media is feeding you. But let's get to the specifics, and then we're able to actually have an open dialogue. And that's one of the things I've learned over the last 20 years.
I think that the issue is we're getting our media from different sources. Both people are getting media from these skewed sources. The facts that you're presenting are not always correct.
And that's why we're here with no TV screens between us. So people who have policy-based substantive disagreements, we invite those. I think that's how we're going to get our country back. And as it relates to trans, which you brought up, 18 or above, you're free to live how you want. You're not free to force that onto somebody else, or especially kids. And if we agree on that, we make some progress. Thank you.
Disagreements, yeah.
I like that. It's a very interesting sign. It says "Write in Biden." I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. We can we'll bring him up in a little bit.
Okay. I think I have to go. We have to do a quick show today. But yeah, it's interesting because you can definitely see the before and after with Charlie Kirk and Vivek, how one has had media training and has learned to change his language to be a little bit more soft, where Charlie's a little more direct. To summarize, if conservatives want to push banning abortion, I would suggest not treating us like children. If you think abortion is murder, then the murderers should be held responsible. If you hire a hitman, you still go to jail. It would be the same thing. I understand why they do it. They have to get the female vote. So I do think their hands are tied in some way, but when it comes to abortion, I don't see it becoming illegal in my lifetime. I wish it would. I wish it was, but I just don't see that happening. And after interviewing 1,000 women, I don't think that social shame is overly effective. If it was, I don't think we would have the society that we have today, where we have the most freedom we've ever had, and promiscuity is up, out of wedlock birth is up, marriage is down, and the internet exists, so there's more opportunity for social shame. It just doesn't really happen. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. We are not doing an after show today, but we will next week. Please go to theaudacitynetwork.com to support my work. And next week, it's going to be at 5 p.m. again, Central Time. And I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.